Hello, my name is Allison Dunbar, and welcome to my presentation, Teaching Diverse Learners. Teaching diverse learners can be. There are three main principles of UDL. The first is provide multiple means of engagement. This is the why of learning. Why do students engage with the material? Why do they persist when it's challenging? The researchers at CAST laid out three guidelines for this principle. Provide options for self-regulation, options for sustaining effort and persistence, and options for recruiting interest. The second principle is provide multiple means of representation, the what of learning. What do students perceive or comprehend? How is the material represented in the lesson? Educators should provide options for students to comprehend the material, options for how they perceive the material, and options for the language, mathematical expressions, and symbols used. The third principle is provide multiple means of action and expression. This is the how of learning. How do your students interact with learning? How do they express themselves? It's important to provide options for executive functions like critical thinking, options for expression and communication, and options for physical action. Following these principles will help not only the students with disabilities in your class, but the students struggling to understand the material and the students who are so far ahead they get bored. UDL applies to everyone. When planning a UDL lesson, there are a few questions to keep in mind that can influence your work. It's important to ask, what am I teaching? What is the subject and what is the point of the lesson? Second, who am I teaching? Who are my students and what do I need to know about them in order to make the lesson a success? Third, how should I present the information to my students? It could be through a visual presentation, a hands-on lesson, partner, or solo work. What form is best for the material being taught? Fourth, how will my students react to the presentation of the material? Will they understand what is being taught? Will they engage with it? Lastly, how can you reach every student? If you have a visual presentation and a student with a visual impairment, how can we adapt the lesson to also meet her needs? These are all important questions to consider. The best way to create a lesson that reaches every student is to know your students. Meyer, Rose, and Gordon, the authors of Universal Design for Learning, Theory and Practice, outline three areas that should be covered when getting to know your students: readiness, interest, and learning profile. Readiness refers to the student's knowledge and skill level in a given subject area. Teachers can use formal and informal tests, work samples, academic records, student self-reports, and KWL charts to determine their students' readiness. The second is interest. What are your students interested in? Many teachers use student interest surveys or inventories to get to know their students. You can also have your students journal about their interests. Lastly, learning profile, the student's preferred method of learning. You can identify this through inventories, questionnaires, and observations. How do your students learn best? So, what does a UDL lesson look like in practice, specifically in early childhood education? I wrote a lesson as part of my class's Community Helpers unit. We were studying doctors, so I designed a lesson that combined literacy, social awareness, and self-care skills into one activity that can be tailored to varied skill levels. For this lesson, students will practice using and applying Band-Aids. Each Band-Aid will have a random uppercase letter, which the student will match the uppercase letter written on top of wounds drawn on the paper they are given. As students will have a variety of both physical and mental abilities, this activity can be done in small groups, pairs, or with teacher guidance. Those who need help recognizing letters can be assisted by the teacher. Those who need more challenge can match lowercase letters to the uppercase letters. Those with fine motor challenges can point out the matching letters and have a partner or teacher assist with the Band-Aid application. The main theory behind this lesson design is that young children learn best through hands-on play activities. Learning needs to be fun and engaging in order to be successful. Children under 5 are still developing self-control and self-regulation skills, so it can be difficult to ask them to focus for a long period of time on something that doesn't interest them. Making lessons fun, engaging, and relatable will prove more successful. Integrating the principles of UDL by providing varied methods of completing a lesson helps every student learn. Thank you for watching my presentation. If you have any questions, please let me know.